The Hilton sale is on. Now through September 29th, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Long weekends, last-minute getaways, holiday gatherings. There's a Hilton stay for all of them. More moments, more experiences, more destinations. Now 20% off for a limited time because it matters where you stay. Don't wait. Book by September 29th and save up to 20% at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton for the stay.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Thanks for listening to the Red Treehouse, where I tell scary stories to keep you up at night. You can listen to the Red Treehouse wherever you stream podcasts. Just be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a 5-star review. You can follow the Red Treehouse on Instagram and Threads at Red Treehouse Pod. And you can find the Red Treehouse on Patreon, where by joining, you can receive exclusive member benefits. Simply go to patreon.com/Red Treehouse. And if you have a scary story or topic you'd like me to feature in an upcoming episode, email redtreehousepod@gmail.com. The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. As we continue our celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, I wanted to narrate a handful of classic short horror stories from around the Spanish-speaking world. And when researching, I hit a small jackpot. In fact, I have no doubt that you've likely never read or heard these stories before. In this episode of the Red Treehouse, I'm going to read you 3 terrific short horror stories. The Feather Pillow, written by Horacio Quiroga. The Green Eyes, written by Gustavo Adolfo Becquer. And Lucifer, written by Pedro Escamilla. These stories are thematically rich, thought-provoking, and genuinely unsettling. And it is my privilege to share these with you. So sit back, turn down the lights, pull up the covers, and pay close attention as I read a collection of horror stories. I'm your host, Will. Welcome to the Red Treehouse. El almohadón de plumas, The Feather Pillow, written by Horacio Quiroga. Their honeymoon was a long, frosty affair. Blonde, angelic, and shy, the bride discovered that her childish dreams dissipated beneath the weight of her husband's rigid character. She loved him very much, however. At times, walking together at night back along the street, she would furtively glance at Jordan, so tall and quiet for the past hour, and trim her slightly. For his part, he loved her deeply, without allowing himself to recognize the fact. For 3 months, they had married in April. They were very happy. Without doubt, she would have preferred less severity in the haven of love they shared, a broader, less cautious tenderness, but her impassive husband always held back. The house in which they lived was of no little importance in this regard. The white patio, with its friezes, columns, and marble statues, produced an autumn-like impression of an enchanted palace. Within, the stucco's glacial shine, which revealed not even the faintest scratch on the high walls, confirmed that impression of unpleasant cold. Crossing from one room to another, one's footsteps echoed throughout the whole house, as if a long abandonment heightened their resonance. Alicia passed the whole autumn in this peculiar love nest. In spite of the fact that she had thrown a veil over her old dreams, she still slept in the hostile environment, unwilling to think of anything but her husband. It's hardly surprising that she lost weight. She suffered a mild dose of flu that laid her low in the most insidious fashion for several days. Alicia never quite recovered from it. Late one afternoon, she was able to take a walk in the garden, leaning on the supportive arm of her husband. She looked indifferently to either side of her, when Jordan, with great tenderness, suddenly ran his hand through her hair. She began sobbing at once and threw her arms around his neck. She cried for a long time. All her silent terror flowed in her tears, the intensity of which increased at the mere hint of a caress. Later, when her sobbing had almost stopped, she still clung to Jordan's neck for a long time, without moving or saying a word. This was the last day that Alicia left her bed. The next morning, she tried to rise but fell in a faint. Jordan's doctor examined her with due care and gave orders that she remain in bed with complete rest. "I don't know," he said to Jordan at the door leading to the street, his voice still low. "She's very weak, but I can't explain why. She's not vomiting or anything. If she's the same in the morning, call me at once." The next day, her condition had worsened. During another consultation, it was observed that she was suffering anemia relentless in its march and yet completely inexplicable. She experienced no more faints, but clearly lay on the verge of death. The light stayed on, and silence reigned in her room the whole day long. Hours passed without the slightest noise from there. Alicia slept. Jordan remained in the living room, where the lights also remained on. He wandered ceaselessly, with tireless obstinacy, from one end to the other. The carpet muffled the sound of his steps. From time to time, he entered the bedroom and continued his silent to and fro the length of the bed, stopping for a moment at each end to gaze at his wife. Soon, Alicia began experiencing hallucinations that seemed to float above her confusedly at first, but later dropped to floor level. The young woman, her eyes open to a disproportionate degree, did nothing more than gaze at the carpet to either side of the back of the bed. One night, she began staring fixedly all of a sudden. Moments later, she opened her mouth to cry out, her nostrils and lips beaded with sweat. "Jordan! Jordan!" she cried, rigid with fright, still staring at the carpet. Jordan ran into the bedroom. Sighting him, Alicia unleashed a horrified shriek. "It's me, Alicia, it's me!" Alicia looked at him as if she failed to recognize him, gazed at the carpet, looked back at him, and after a long moment of speechless stupefaction, calmed down. She smiled and took her husband's hands in hers, caressing them for half an hour, trembling. An anthropoid that supported itself on the carpet on its fingers and gazed fixedly into her eyes featured among her most persistent hallucinations. The doctors came back futilely. Before them, a life was ebbing away. bleeding little by little every day, hour after hour, but they could not be certain of the reason why. During the last consultation, Alicia lay in a stupor while they checked her pulse, each one leaving the lifeless wrist for the one beside him. They studied her for a long time and then continued to the dining room. "Psst," said Jordan's doctor, shrugging his shoulders discouragingly. "It's a serious case. There's little can be done." "That's all I needed," snorted Jordan. He drummed his fingers brusquely on the table. Alicia was succumbing to a delirium of anemia most pronounced in the evenings, but less relentless in the early hours of the day. During the daytime, her illness never worsened, but every morning she awoke discolored and almost blacked out. It appeared that new waves of blood flowed out of her only at night. She always awoke feeling as if she had collapsed on the bed with the weight of 1,000,000 kilograms upon her. The sensation of sinking never left her after the third day. She could scarcely raise her head. She did not want anyone to touch the bed, or even arrange the pillow. Her nightly terror now took the form of monsters that crawled toward the bed and climbed with difficulty upon the bedspread. Afterward, she lost consciousness. During the last 2 days, she intoned softly in her delirium. The lights continued shining gloomily in the bedroom and the living room. In the agonizing silence that hung over the house, nothing could be heard but the monotonic delirium issuing from the bedroom and the dull resounding of Jordan's never-ending footsteps. Alicia finally died. When the servant later entered the room to strip the bed, she gazed surprised at the pillow. "Sir," she called Jordan in a low voice. There appeared to be bloodstains on the pillow. Jordan appeared quickly and was at once taken aback by the sight. Indeed, upon the pillowcase, to both sides of the hollow where Alicia's head had lain, there were dark stains. "They look like bites," murmured the servant after a studied glance. "Bring it to the light," Jordan said to her. The servant lifted the pillow, but at once let it drop and looked frightened and trembling at it. Without quite knowing why, Jordan felt his hair stand on end. "What is it?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "It's very heavy," remarked the servant, still trembling. Jordan lifted the pillow. It was extraordinarily heavy. He carried it to the table in the dining room, cut the pillowcase, and slashed the wrapping. The topmost feathers flew away, and the servant gave a horrified cry, her mouth wide open, bringing her twitching hands to the sides of her face. At the bottom, among the feathers, slowly moving its shaggy feet, there was a monstrous animal, a living, viscous ball of flesh. It was so swollen that it was scarcely possible to discern the line of its mouth. Night after night, ever since Alicia took to her bed, it stealthily applied its mouth, or rather its snout, to her temples and sucked her blood. The bites were almost imperceptible. Without doubt, the daily stripping of the pillow impeded the animal's progress at first, but as soon as the young woman was unable to move, the sucking was relentless. In 5 days and 5 nights, Alicia lost all her blood. These parasitic birds, diminutive in their habitual environment, can become gigantic under certain conditions. Human blood is especially to their liking, and it is not uncommon to find them in feather pillows.
Switch to Shiseido Benefiance Wrinkle Smoothing Eye Cream and discover why people are calling it the best eye cream. A powerhouse formula that targets 5 types of eye area wrinkles. 96% of users saw reduced wrinkles and diminished dark circles after just 7 days. Shop Shiseido Benefiance Wrinkle Smoothing Eye Cream at Sephora and discover how change can happen in the blink of an eye. Consumer tested by 110 women.
When your investors, customers, and workers demand more from your business, make it happen with SAP. The AI-powered capabilities of SAP can help you streamline costs, connect with new suppliers, and manage payroll, even when your business is being pulled in different directions. To deliver a quality product at a fair price while paying your people what they're worth too, so your business can stay unfazed. Learn more at sap.com/uncertainty.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
Hello, Nigel here. As an owl, I love to be awake all night, but allergy sufferers like you probably don't feel the same. So take Xyzal at night to relieve allergies while you sleep. Then wake up fully refreshed for a more productive day. Xyzal works fast and offers 24-hour continuous relief from sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, and itchy nose and throat, so you can enjoy doing the things you love all day long. Be wise all. Take Xyzal at night. Use as directed. Starts working in 45 minutes.
In 1988, a small New Jersey town is shaken by horror. A devoted mother murdered, satanic symbols scattered throughout her home, and her teenage son vanished without a trace. Was this a demonic ritual or a calculated act of evil? Horror master Eli Roth unravels the terrifying truth in Let the Devil In. Now streaming new episodes Sundays exclusively on MGM+.
Los Ojos Verdes, or The Green Eyes, written by Gustavo Adolfo Becquer. For a long time, I have wanted to write something with this title. Now that the occasion has arisen, I have written it with capital letters on the first sheet of paper, and then I have let my pen wander at will. I am sure that I have seen some eyes like those I have described in this story. I don't know if it was something I dreamt, but I have seen them. I will never be able to describe them exactly as they were, luminous and transparent, like the drops of rain that fall from the leaves of the forest after a summer storm. For that reason, I am counting on the imagination of my readers to help with the interpretation of what might be considered the rough draft of a story I am going to write someday. Chapter 1. The deer is wounded. It is definitely wounded. There, you can see drops of blood between the branches, and here, where it tried to jump over this branch, you can see that its legs are weakened. Our young lord is starting out, where others finish. In all my 40 years of hunting, I have never seen a better shot. But by San Saturio, the patron saint of Soria, cut off that deer before it gets through the rest of this thicket, set loose the hounds, blow your horns till you're blue in the face, and sink your spurs into the flanks of your horses. Can't you see that it is about to reach the spring of Los Alamos? And if it gets there before it dies, we've lost it. The sounds of horns echoed over the slopes of Mount Moncayo. The pack of hounds was let loose, and the voices of the hunters resounded with new fury as the combined troop of men, horses and dogs, directed by Inigo, the chief hunter of the Marquis of Almenad, made a determined effort to cut off the flight of the wounded deer. But all their efforts were in vain. By the time the fastest greyhound reached the thicket panting, his jaws slathered with foam, the deer, which was as fast as an arrow, had already left it and had entered the path which leads to the spring. "Stop! Everyone stop!" Inigo shouted. It was God's will that it escape. The mounted procession halted. The horn stopped blowing, and after a shout from the hunters, the eager pack of greyhounds also stopped following the trail. At that moment, the group was joined by Fernando de Argensola, the oldest son of the Count of Almenad, who was leader of this expedition. "What are you doing?" he exclaimed, turning to the chief hunter with an expression of outrage painted on his face and his eyes burning with anger. "You idiot, what have you done? You can see that animal is badly wounded. It is the first one I have been able to shoot. and now you want to let it go and die in the forest. Do you think I've come to hunt deer just so they can provide food for the wolves?" "Lord," Inigo whispered under his breath, "it is impossible to go beyond this point." "Impossible? And why is that?" "Because this trail," the chief hunter continued, "leads to the spring of Los Alamos. The spring of Los Alamos, in whose waters there is an evil spirit. Anyone who dares to enter that place will pay dearly for his boldness. The deer will have already crossed the boundary. How will you ever be able to stop it without bringing a terrible disaster down on your head? We hunters are the kings of Mount Moncayo, but kings who pay a price. And any animal who manages to get near that mysterious spring must be considered a lost cause." "A lost cause? I would rather lose the lordship of my family. I would rather place my soul in the hands of Satan than let that deer escape, since it is the only one that was shot by my bow, and on my very first hunting expedition. Look there, you can see. It is still visible. Its legs are weakening and it's slowing down. So let me go. Just let me go. Let go of my bridle or I will knock you off your horse. Maybe I can still reach it before it gets to the spring. And if it does, the devil take its waters or its evil inhabitants. Let's go, Relámpago. Let's go, horse. If you can catch it, I will order them to fasten diamonds to your golden halter." The horse and its rider bolted off with an explosion of movement. Inigo followed them with his eyes until they disappeared among the trees. He turned to the others and saw that they were also frozen and speechless. Finally, the chief hunter said to the others, "Men, you saw it. I was ready to die under the hooves of his stallion to keep him from leaving. I did what I could. No good can come from confronting the devil. A hunter can go this far with his bow, but in order to go further than this, you would need a priest with a dispenser of holy water." Chapter 2. "You look a bit off color today. You are gloomy and upset. What is wrong with you?" "Ever since that fateful day, which I will always consider regrettable, when you went to the spring of Los Alamos after that wounded deer, you look like some evil witch has put you under her spell. You never go into the forest with your hounds, nor does the sound of your horn echo through the trees. Every morning, bearing this burden that seems to weigh you down, you enter the forest with your bow and remain there until the sun sets. Then, by the time night falls, you come back to the castle pale and exhausted, but I have not seen you bring home any game. What are you doing during those long hours when you are away from those who love you?" While Inigo spoke, Fernando was lost in thought, mechanically digging splinters out of an ebony chair with his hunting knife. After a long silence, that was only interrupted by the sound of the blade scraping the polished wood, the young lord turned to his servant, and as if he had not heard a single word the latter had spoken, he said, "Inigo, you've been here a long time. You know all the haunts of Mount Moncayo. You have crossed its slopes in pursuit of game, and during your many hunts you have reached the summit more than once. Tell me, by chance, have you ever encountered a woman who lives among its rocks?" "A woman?" exclaimed the Inigo, looking at him with astonishment. "Yes," the young lord replied. "I have had a very strange experience. Very strange. I thought I could keep this a secret indefinitely, but I see that it is not possible. It spills out of my heart and is visible in my countenance, so I am going to tell you, and I hope you will be able to help me resolve the mystery surrounding this creature, who, it seems, is real only for me, since no one else has ever seen her, nor can anyone tell me anything about her." Without saying a word, and without taking his eyes off Fernando, Inigo moved the stool where he was sitting, so he was facing his lord's chair. The latter, after gathering his thoughts, continued speaking. "Since the day when, in spite of your ominous predictions, I went to the spring of Los Alamos and rode into the waters to retrieve the deer your superstition allowed to escape, my soul has been consumed by a desire for solitude. You have no idea what that place is like. Drops of water flow out of an opening in the rocks, passing through the leaves of the plants that grow around it. As they fall, the drops shine like gold and tinkle like beautiful notes of music. They flow through the grass, rippling with a sound like bees buzzing around a flower. Then, the water forms a channel which twists around the rocks in its path till it flows into a small lake. The drops of water fall into the lake, making a sound that is indescribable. Moans, words, names, songs. I don't know what it is that I heard. When alone and filled with sadness, I sat on the edge of the rocks next to the place where water of this mysterious spring is falling, until it fills an area whose quiet surface is hardly ever disturbed by the afternoon breeze. Everything there seems large. The solitude, with its myriad of tiny mysterious sounds, spreads through that space, intoxicating the spirit with an ineffable melancholy. In the silvery leaves of the poplars, in the hollows between the rocks, in the waves of the water, it seems like the invisible spirits of nature are speaking to us, and that they recognize a kindred spirit in the immortal soul of man. When you saw me take my bow at the break of dawn and enter the forest, it was never with the intention of going to hunt for game. No, I always went to sit on the edge of the spring, to look in its waves for, I don't know what, some madness. On the day when I rode into it with my relámpago, I thought that I saw something strange in the water, something very strange. A woman's eyes. Maybe it was only a ray of sunlight that sparkled on the surface, or maybe it was one of those flowers that float in the water whose petals look like emeralds. Who knows? But I thought those eyes were fixed on mine. It was then that an absurd, impossible dream was awakened in my heart, to find a person with eyes like those. That is why I returned, day after day, in the hope of finding them. Finally, one afternoon, I thought it was a dream, but no, it was real. I have spoken with her many times, like I am speaking with you now. One afternoon, sitting where I usually sit, dressed in clothes that reached the water and floated over its surface, I found an incredibly beautiful woman. Her hair was like gold, her eyelashes shone like threads of light, and between those lashes sparkled the same eyes I had seen. Yes, because the eyes of that woman were those that had become fixed in my mind, eyes with a color that was amazing. Eyes that were green, exclaimed Inigo with terror, rising out of the place where he had been sitting. Fernando looked at him with surprise and asked him with a mixture of anxiety and happiness, "Do you know her then?" "Heavens, no," the huntsman objected. "God forbid that I should ever know her. But when my parents forbade me to go to that place, they told me many times that the spirit, the imp, the devil, or the woman who lived in those waters had eyes of that color. I beg of you, by what you love most in this world, do not go back to the spring of Los Alamos. Sooner or later, its terrible curse will certainly fall on you, and you will perish in its tainted waters." "By what I love most?" the young man murmured with a sad smile. "Yes," his elder insisted, "by your parents, by your family, by the soul of the one whom heaven has destined to be your wife, by that of a servant who witnessed your birth. Do you know what I love most in the world? Do you know for what I would sacrifice the love of my father, the kisses of the one who gave me life, and all the affection that the women of this world could offer me? For one gaze, for just one gaze from those eyes, how could I possibly not keep on searching for them?" Fernando said this with such intensity that a tear trembled in Inigo's eye, and then it trickled down his cheek, as he said with a tone of foreboding, "May God's will be done." Chapter 3. Who are you? Where are you from? Where do you live? I have come here looking for you almost every day, and I never see a horse or any other means of travel that could bring you here. Please tear away the veil of mystery that surrounds you like the darkest night. I love you, and noble or commoner, I will be yours forever. The sun had passed behind the peak of the mountain, and the shadows were spreading down its slopes. The wind was whistling through the poplars, and the fog was gradually rising over the water and covering the rocks on its edge. On one of these rocks that seemed about to plunge into the depths of the water, whose trembling surface reflected his image, was the heir of Almenad, who was resting on his knees at the feet of his mysterious beloved, as he tried in vain to learn the secret of her strange existence. She was beautiful, beautiful and pale, like an alabaster statue. One of the tresses of her hair had fallen over her shoulder and was hidden in the folds of her veil like a ray of sunlight that is lost in a cloud, and within the circle of her blonde eyelashes, her green eyes shone like two emeralds set in gold. When the young man stopped talking, her lips parted as though she were going to say something, but then they only gave a sigh that was weak and halting, like a ripple that was pushed by the breeze until it was lost among the rushes. "Why don't you answer me?" Fernando pleaded, on seeing his hopes dashed. "Do you want me to believe all that they have said about you? But no, never that. Speak to me. I want to know if you love me. I want to know if I can love you, if you are a woman, or perhaps a demon, and if I were." The youth hesitated for a moment, while a cold sweat spread over his body. His eyes opened farther as he fixed them on her even more intently, fascinated by her phosphoric glow. Almost driven mad, he exclaimed with an outburst of love, "If you were, I would still love you. I would love you then as I love you now, as it is my destiny to love you, even beyond this life, if there is something beyond it." "Fernando," the beautiful woman said with a voice that seemed like music, "I love you even more than you love me. I, who am a true spirit, have descended to a mortal. I am not a woman like those who exist on the earth. I am a woman who is worthy of you, you who are superior to other men. I live here in the depths of these waters, and I am incorporeal, fleeting and transparent, like they are. I speak with their voice and I move in their ripples. I will not punish the one who dares to disturb the waters where I dwell. Instead, I will reward him with my love, as a mortal who is immune to ordinary superstitions, as a lover who is capable of appreciating my rare and mysterious affection." While she spoke, Fernando was lost in the contemplation of her ineffable beauty, and as though he were drawn by a mysterious power, he moved closer and closer to the edge of the water. The green-eyed woman continued speaking. "Look, can you see the clear bottom of this tiny lake? Can you see all the plants with long green leaves that are rocking on the bottom? They will give us a bed of emeralds and coral, and I will give you a nameless joy, the joy of which you have dreamed during your moments of rapture, a happiness no other woman could give you. Come, the fog is floating over us like a blanket of linen. The waves are beckoning with their incomprehensible voice, and now the wind is rustling the poplars with its hymn of love. So come, come." Night was beginning to spread its shadow over the water, and the face of the moon was shining on the surface. The fog was eddying in the breeze, and the green leaves glowing in the darkness seemed like will-o'-the-wisps flickering over the surface of tainted waters. "Come, come." These words were humming in Fernando's ears like an incantation. "Come," and the woman who called him from the border of the abyss seemed to offer him a kiss. A kiss. Fernando took one step forward, and then another. He felt slender arms wrap around his neck, and then he felt a cold sensation like a snowy kiss on his burning lips. Still he hesitated, but finally, he slipped and fell into the water with a fateful splash. The water splattered like sparks of light. Then, it closed over his body, and silvery rings spread out until they finally disappeared.
I was deep in it, gaming on Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. Unfolding the screen made it twice as big and so immersive, I kinda lost myself. Might have trolled a little too close to the sun. Someone in the chat told me to touch grass, so I took my Z Fold 7 outside and kept playing. Still won, got a tan, and a nice little reset. Powerful processor, realistic graphics, you stay locked in, streak stays alive. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
I know every operating system like the back of my hand.
I have 25 years of experience and have worked with several people from your company. I've been recognized for my passion. My team is everything.
LinkedIn delivers candidates who rise above the rest. With an up-to-date view into shared connections, skills, and interests you won't find anywhere else. See why 86% of small businesses who post a job on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within a day. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/achieve. LinkedIn, your next great hire is here.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
Heather is a nurse practitioner from United Healthcare.
We meet patients wherever they live.
During a house call, she found Jack had an issue.
Jack's blood pressure was dangerously high.
It was 217 over 110.
So they got Jack to the hospital and got him the help he needed.
He had had a stent placed in his heart, preventing a massive heart attack.
If it wasn't for my guardian angel, I wouldn't be here.
Hear more stories like Jack's at unitedhealthcare.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan, area, limitation, and exclusions apply.
Lucifer, written by Pedro Escamilla. There was in the village of a poor young man named Antero, who was about to wed Marcelina, one of the comeliest girls in the region. The event, I speak of the marriage, was taking place against the wishes of Auntie Ursula, a sort of village witch. For until quite recently, all remote villages and sparsely inhabited neighborhoods enjoyed the odd privilege of a resident witch. Auntie Ursula didn't tell fortunes, or predict the future, or even give the evil eye. Yet she was considered a witch. Everyone in the village thought so, because, and this is serious, he couldn't remain in the church while the missal was open, an ailment peculiar to those caught in the flagrant offense of witchcraft. Why did Marcelina and Antero's wedding displease the good old woman? Who knows? Look, Auntie Ursula would say when speaking to anyone about the matter, that marriage, which seems so auspicious, will bring unhappiness to both parties. Marcelina, who is blonde, has a mole with black hair on the upper part of her throat. This is a contradiction, for in general the color of a person's mole tends to match their hair color. And besides, Antero was promised to Lucifer by his mother. I know for a fact that she made this desperate vow so she could have a son. A marriage that takes place under such strange circumstances can't have anything but a disastrous end. The vow by Antero's mother was hypothetical. Nobody except Auntie Ursula knew a word about it. As for the mole, That was true. But until then, no one had ever noticed that blondes with black moles were doomed to misfortune. But in the village, they began to recall some circumstances that related indirectly to the witch's claims about the promise that Antero's mother had made. Let's look at the main one. The same day the boy was born, his father bought from some gypsies a white colt from Cordoba, with a fine figure and lively blood. The colt was raised with, and still answered to, the name of Lucifer. Without doubt, this is a name with an ominous shadow. It's better for a horse to be called Thunder, Lightning, or Hurricane, rather than bear the name of the spirit of darkness. Moreover, the animal lived up to its name. It was a malicious, willful, stubborn beast, and the rider who mounted it found his life hanging by a thread, as the saying goes. In the village, the horse had proved its temperament, leaving lame and crippled some of those who had tried to overcome its savagery. Antero's father would have long gotten rid of it, had he not been stopped by the affection that the horse showed to his son. In the middle of the greatest displays of his headstrong will, the boy's presence was enough to calm the horse down. Antero was the only person who could assert his will over it. By the laws of nature, laws until then never violated, as the boy grew to a man, the horse should have grown old. But this didn't happen. When Antero turned 20, Lucifer, who was already 22, seemed in the prime of life, at the peak of his powers. This circumstance didn't go unnoticed by the village, especially the people who had heard old Ursula's strange words. It wasn't natural for a 22-year-old horse to boast the same strength and vigor that it had at 6 or 8. And through it all, the bond of affection between the horse and the boy grew stronger. Against all odds, that is to say, in spite of the effect that Auntie Ursula's words might have caused, the wedding day arrived. Whether happily or sadly, I don't know. Marcelina and Antero received the priest's blessing in the morning, after the reading from the Epistle of St. Paul, and after the obligatory tears that the bride's closest friends and relatives always shed in these situations, while the guests' stomachs eagerly anticipated the roast pig and the buns drizzled with wine and brandy. During the ceremony, something strange happened at Antero's house. Afterwards, they realized that at the moment the bride and groom exchanged the I do's that would unite their souls for life, Lucifer, who in the stable had been showing signs of impatience, began to paw and stamp the ground boisterously, struggling to break the halter that held him. This he managed to do little by little. Once free, he directed his attacks at the stable door, whose panels fell to pieces under his hooves, until he had made a space large enough for his body to pass through. He immediately ran away and disappeared from the village, leaving a trail of dust that completely enveloped him. This occurrence worried Antero, who, on finding himself separated from his favorite horse, began to suspect misfortune. It was the first time this had happened. On any other day, the annoyance would have occasioned serious discomfort. But was such concern justified in the face of Marcelina's charms? Should the thought of the horse erase from his imagination the joy he was beginning to savor, the good fortune he had waited for so long? Throughout the day, the memory of the horse more than once darkened his mind, but these thoughts were passing clouds that didn't blight his loving desire in the least. It was only when his eyes fell on the gaunt countenance of Auntie Ursula that he shuddered in spite of himself, and when the witch's words came to his ears, he trembled for his future happiness. It's an indiscretion for witches to attend weddings, even when not invited. Their presence only serves to upset the newlyweds' joy. It was night, a clear, tranquil, and serene night, a night of moonlight and bliss. The brightest stars had gathered over Antero's house to illuminate his joy. Great numbers of larks and swallows slept in the trees of the orchard to wake the newlyweds with their gentle chirping. The flowers gave off a more penetrating and heady scent, and the breezes sweeter and more plaintive sighs. The wedding dance had just ended. Soon, one could hear from afar the loud laughter of the last couples lingering on the lonely streets of the village, and the neighborhood cat slept satiated under the banquet table. Marcelina and Antero, alone in their room, contemplated each other with that delightful ecstasy that leads lovers to the sweetness of paradise. Marcelina had never been more beautiful. A delicate crimson flushed her cheeks, brought on by her shyness at finding herself for the first time in the presence of a man who had some right to her. Sweet, tantalizing ideas rolled through her mind in confusion, chasing one after another. Antero took her hand and kissed it rapturously. Suddenly, a furious whinny was heard from outside. Antero, remembering his horse, rushed to the window. "Where are you going?" Marcelina asked him in a dulcet voice. But Antero didn't hear her. There below, at the door of the house, stood Lucifer, covered in foam. The horse had come to find him. At that moment, Antero forgot his young bride, who repeated to him with some reproach, "But where are you going?" He rushed down the stairs, leaving behind him all the sweet emotions of a wedding night. Antero would not mount those stairs again. He opened the door. Lucifer whinnied with pleasure at the feel of his owner's hand on his flank, patting him affectionately. Then Antero felt his legs give way, and he fell to the ground at the horse's feet, striking his forehead on the cobblestones. He wanted to rise but could not. A strange giddiness was taking control of his mind. At that moment, he felt the horse's thick tail brush his face, and that the strong horsehair was tangled in his own coarse locks. As if Lucifer had been waiting for that instant, as if an invisible whip had fallen on his hindquarters, the horse gave a vigorous leap and took off at a dizzying and terrible gallop, with his unfortunate master caught to his tail by the hair. "Lucifer! Lucifer!" shouted Antero between howls of pain. But his voice, far from restraining the animal, seemed instead to accelerate its flight. Antero began to lose consciousness. With the last glimmerings of his awareness, he saw by the silvery rays of the moon that they were already outside the village, its houses lost in the distance. And the horse, in its headlong race, was tearing him to shreds, dragging him through the undergrowth. A moment later, he saw nothing. He was a corpse. This is how old Ursula's prediction came to pass, and from then on, no one in the village doubted that the horse was the incarnation of Lucifer, who had carried a soul that had been promised him a way to his domain. The following morning, a farmhand found Antero's corpse, horribly mutilated, many leagues distant from the village. Marcelina went mad that night, her wedding night, and from then on only stared out the window, awaiting the return of her ill-fated husband. What did you think of these terrific short horror stories? Comment or email redtreehousepod@gmail.com. As we turn down the lights on this episode, make plans to join me next time as we continue our celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm your host, Will. Thanks for joining me in the Red Treehouse.